downward sloping demand, what you get from the last unit sold will be lower than the price. Alright? Okay. Say this is the monopolist demand. That's the inverse demand for monopolist. So total revenue from monopolist becomes PQ, which is this one. That's the total revenue. Alright? What's the margin value? That's the margin value. This is always lower than. For any quantity, that's the price. That's the margin value. This is always lower than this. Choose any quantity, this is lower than this. For monopolist, the margin value is always lower than the price. Because to sell one more unit, you have to reduce the price on all prior units. Make sense? Let me put the numbers on it. You have to put numbers on it. Suppose monopolist sells 10 units. The price is 90, that's what the demand says. So total revenue is how much? 900 bucks. Alright? That's what the demand says. Suppose now they want to sell one extra unit. What should be the price? 89. What's the revenue then? What's 11 multiplied by 89? 900? 79. Alright? So what's the margin value? 79. They sold this 11th unit for 89 bucks. They only got 79 bucks for it. Right? Why? Because although they charged 89 bucks, but they gave $1 discount to the first 10 units. That pushed the intake from the last install to be lower than the price. So if you are monopolist facing downward sloping demand, what you get from the last install will be always less than the price. Alright? That is called characteristic number 1. We differentiate between monopolist and delta competition. Okay? Okay. Just a note, if I generalize what I did there, we overall assume demand is straight line just for simplicity. We don't ever use non-straight line demand. Let's complicate the calculation. We assume straight line. So total revenue becomes this one. And margin revenue becomes this one. So from here up, if you want to find the margin value, take the inverse demand, double the slope. That's the margin value. You don't have to get the total revenue and take a derivative. You don't have to take derivatives. You just use the raw sum. Take the inverse demand, double the slope. That will give you margin value. Alright? So if you want to graph it, this is the way demand is graphed. By demanding inverse demand. QP. The highest price is A. If you put Q equal to 0. How much is the highest quantity? If you put P equal to 0, what do you get? A over B. That becomes your demand curve. Alright? That's the demand curve. If you want to graph the inverse demand, it comes right in the middle. Right in the middle. So that is the way we graph the margin value. Alright? Okay. The inverse demand is also called average revenue. For obvious reasons, that's the average you get from whatever you sell. The price is the average, right? So we call this inverse demand or average revenue. It's the same. So sometimes we call it AR, sometimes we call it the price. Make sense? Okay. So characteristic number 1, monopolist never produces, monopolist has MR that falls below the price. You can see it graphically. For any quantity, what you get is lower than the price. Choose any quantity, the intake will be lower than the price. Say, choose to sell this unit. That is what you get in the margin value, that's the price you charge. You can see the margin fall, but right below the price. For any quantity you want to sell, you get less than the price. Right? Why? Because you have to reduce the price to get there. That was characteristic number one. Number two. Monopolist will not produce on the inelastic part of demand. Monopolist is a price setter. They can choose any point on the demand. They're the only one who produces. They can basically sell whatever they want to sell based on the demand, get the price. But they never produce on the inelastic part of demand. Although all this demand is available to them. All that's available. You can choose any point on it. But they never choose a point on which the demand is inelastic. Right? We'll see why. I'll show you in a bit that where MR is equal to 0, at that point, elastic demand is 1. So where MR is equal to 0, at that quantity, at that point on the demand, elastic is 1. Then, to the right of it, it will be less than 1 inelastic. To the left will be more than 1 elastic. So if I show you that point, that will establish characteristic number 2. You're never going to exceed this point because there MR is equal to negative. It will be negative. How can you have margin when it's negative? For the margin event to be equal to marginal cost, if the margin event is negative, marginal cost should be negative, which is impossible. That establishes the point, which is you never produce on the inelastic part of demand. Because there, margin value will be negative. Right? And for that to be optimization, marginal cost must be negative. Right? Anyway, let's find this point first, then I'll talk about it more. Let's find the elasticity at this point. That is where MR is equal to 0. When MR is equal to 0, the quantity should be A over 2B. What should be the price? What should be the price there? Put this quantity in the demand, find the price. What would be the price? What's the price if the quantity is A over 2B? At that point, the intake from the last unit sold is nothing. You're not going to get anything from it. What's the price? A over, yes, right, it's in the middle of the straight line, right? So this will be in the middle, that will be in the middle too, A over B. What's the elasticity of demand formula? It's the slope of demand function. It's the slope of demand function. Price, quantity ratio. Now we found the price, that was A over 2. We found a quantity that is A over 2B. What's the slope of demand function the way I wrote it? That's the demand, right? What's the slope of demand function? How much is it? I have the price, I have the quantity, based on A and B. I want to find the slope to find the elasticity. What's the slope? Anyone? Minus B? Minus 1 over B, because that's the inverse demand. We need the actual demand. I wrote the inverse demand. So that's the slope actual demand, right? So that is what I need there. I'm going to solve it now. This goes away with this. This goes away with this. That's minus 1. So where M is equal to 0, at that point, margin value is, the elasticity is 0. Sorry. When MR is 0, at that point, elasticity is 1. If you go to the right, the quantity is more. This goes up. This goes down. It becomes less than 1. That's inelastic. If you go to the left, that becomes elastic. Right. So this part of demand has inelastic demand. If you want to be on that part of demand, the MR and MC must hit each other there. At the negative side of MR, which is impossible. You never produce on the inelastic part of demand because MR can never be negative because MC can never be negative. Graphically speaking, what you do is you put MC equal to MR at the left side of that point. You arrive at quantity that maximizes profit, then you set the price on the elastic part of demand. You never set it on the inelastic part of demand. So although monopolists can choose any point on the demand, you will never choose a point on the inelastic part of demand. Can never maximize profit there. Impossible. Alright? Okay. That's what the numbers said. The theory said. Conceptually, it's even stronger. Suppose demand is inelastic. If you change the price by 1%, increase it, what will happen to quantity? It will change by what percentage? Is it 1%, more than 1%, less than 1%? We know the quantity falls. If you raise the price, the quantity you sell is lower. That wants to be demand. By how much? If demand is inelastic, if you increase the price by 1%, by how much the demand falls? Is it by 1%, more or less? It will be less. If demand is inelastic, that would be less than 1%. So total revenue is PQ. Will that go up or down? The price is going up by 1%, quantity is going up by less than 1%. This goes up. You will have incentive to raise the price because your revenue goes up. You raise the price, you make more money. Why not? You never stop raising the price. Right? If the demand is inelastic, you have incentive to keep raising the price. Right? That increases your profit. When it becomes elastic, then it goes the other way around. If you increase the price, your actual revenue goes down. Then it goes down. Your cost goes down with it. You stop somewhere. Well, if demand is inelastic, you have incentive to keep increasing the price. As a result, you never choose a point on the inelastic part of the demand. You can never maximize profit there. Right? That is characteristic number 2. So although monopolists can choose any point on the demand, they will never choose a point on the inelastic part of the demand because they can never maximize profit there. Right? That make sense? Okay. Number 3. Characteristic number 3. Monopolists does not have supply function. In fact, supply function is only for perfectly competitive firm. Anyone outside perfect competition does not have a supply function. What is a supply function? Supply function is a unique relation between price, quantity that supply operates on. If that's the price, I sell this. If that's the quantity, I charge this. That's the supply. How do you find a supply? You find a supply by shifting the demand. That's formulation number 1. Remember that strawberry question? You ever checked it? This is the way you find a supply. You change the demand, see what quantity, what price you get. They will be on the supply. You identify the supply by shifting the demand. Right? In question number 1, we had the case of, there is a hoax. Some people say strawberry is contaminated. We found a supply through it. Remember that? You change the supply, demand, you find the supply. If you shift the supply, you find the demand. Alright? So, shift the demand, you get a unique price quantity, connect them, that's the supply. If you do the same thing for the monopolists, we're not going to say unique price quantity ratio. Sometimes the demand shift leads to a price change, sometimes to a quantity change, sometimes both will change. So you cannot say that price, that quantity, that price. As a result, there will be no supply function from monopolists. So let me show you that graphically. It's unbelievable. Next week, the term ends. What can I do? What should I do then? I'm going to miss you. Not really. But yes. But really, I mean, it's like moves so fast. If you're actually doing it, on the other side moves so slow. I went to one of the classes. I'm supposed to write a report. 1 hour, that's 10 hours. It never ends. I'm saying, why this guy doesn't finish, right? It never ends. And I was on my phone all the time. So it's very hard to be on the other side of it. It's very, very slow. But on this side, like, very fast. Anyway, because you face deadlines. When you face deadlines, like you're running all the time. Deadline after deadline after deadline. It never ends, right? So things will move very quickly. If you don't have deadlines, it's very slow. Right? Anyway, that is a demand. That's the demand for monopolists. We call it average value 2. That is, let me grab it smaller so we have space. That's one demand. That is average revenue or demand. That is marginal revenue. That's the marginal cost. Monopolists put MR equal to MC, find profit maximizing quantity, and then set the price based on the demand. So remember, monopoly does not set the quantity. He's not going to go there and say, I sell you 10, what do you pay me? He's a price setter. He's going to go say, that's the price, how much you want to buy. But to get the price, he found the quantity first. So he put MR equal to MC, found profit maximizing quantity, using that set the price on the demand. Alright? So this monopolist put P1. Suppose demand shifts. That's a new demand. This is P2. PR2, that is a new. Marginal value. Magically, it hits the marginal cost at the same point. Obviously, that's intentional. What will this monopolist do? The MR hits the MC at the same point. So he opted to choose to sell the same unit, but the demand is different now. He charges much higher price. So this monopolist facing a demand shock sold the same unit at much higher price. What is the supply then? Can you say this quantity sold at that price? That price is attached to this quantity? You cannot say it. Right? So we have two prices for the same quantity. Monopolist is not a supply function. We cannot say that price, that's the number monopolist will sell. That's quantity, that's would be the price. No one-to-one relation between price and quantity for monopolist. As a result, there is no supply function. Monopolists put MR equal to MC on the sides. That's what they do. Put MR equal to MC and decide what the quantity, what the price would be. Sometimes the price changes, sometimes the quantity changes, sometimes both will change. No one-to-one relation between price and quantity, then you can call supply. Make sense? Monopolist has no supply function. Right? You cannot say, if you ask the monopolist to sell 10 units, that will be the price. He can charge whatever it is. It all depends on how demand looks like. See what he's doing here. This demand is far less elastic, more elastic than this one. He charges lower price. When demand becomes vertical, less elastic, you just charge more price. You look at the demand in slides. If demand becomes less elastic, it charges more. Become more elastic, it charges less. The quantity can go either way. It all depends where MR is equal to MC. Right? Make sense? Okay. Characteristic number 3. Sorry, number 4. If you tax a perfectly competitive firm, what will happen? That's a perfectly competitive firm. You have a supply and demand. That's the perfect competition. You tax it. What will happen? The price consumers pay will go up. the price producer gets will go down. That will be the tax. So for a perfect competitive firm, the change in the price post-tax is always less than the tax. You can see, if you tax a monopolist, the price goes up, but not by the tax. It will be by less. Why? Because monopolists, perfect competition, absorb some of the cost. They pay it. A perfect competitive firm always absorbs some of the cost. That's the meaning of that one. Monopoly may dump all the costs and more to the consumer. He may absorb none of the costs. I.e. for monopoly, the change in the price might be more than the tax. It's possible. For monopoly, the change in the price might be more or less than the tax. It all depends on how demand looks like. But there's a chance, not a good chance, there's a chance. If you tax a monopolist, he will change the price by more than the tax. For perfect competition, it's impossible. For perfect competition, supplier always pays some of the tax. For monopoly, they may or may not pay the tax. Right? Okay. Let me show you that one. I'm going to show a case like that. That is demand. That's the margin value. So the way the demand is very elastic, very inelastic. So it changes position. Or it's not a straight line. Fairly college initially, then become horizontal. Suppose that's the marginal cost. Let's put it constant. So that monopolist will choose to optimize selling this quantity and charging this price. Make sense? So that's the monopoly operating to maximize profit. The government comes in, taxes the monopoly. So now the new marginal cost post-tax becomes the old one plus the tax. Suppose the unit tax. So graphically speaking, the marginal cost goes up. The marginal cost goes up. That's the new marginal cost, which is the old one plus the tax. This is the tax. Right? Make sense? Right? Okay. Now the monopolist optimize again at this point. That's how much he sells. That is how much he charges. That is the change in the price. Which one is higher? The change in the price or the tax? Which one is higher?
Change in price.
In the price. So he dumped all the costs to the consumer. He paid none of it. Right? It's possible. For perfect competition, it's not possible at all. It's impossible. The cost is always shared. For monopoly, it's possible. It's possible when demand looks like this. Quite inelastic, it changes position. So if you have a demand like straight line, stuff like that, the cost is shared. Right? But you may have cases like this, where all the costs are dumped to consumer. So be careful with monopoly. If you tax it, you don't know what's going to happen, right? He may raise the price by far more than the tax. It all depends on how demand looks like. Right? You tax them $10, they make the price by $20. It's possible. For perfect competition, it's not possible at all. Right? Anyway, that is characteristic number 4. So we did 4 characteristics. We did 4 of them. There's one more left. That will be next week, and I'll finish up the item number 1, which is characteristics of monopoly. Make sure you learn them. They will show up in less than a month. The fun is inclusive. There's a lot of it from the last 3 lectures. My TS said, I don't know which guy, there's a lot of AI negotiation on the quiz. AI is not developed enough to beat yet. So the answer AI provided are all wrong, right? They're not correct. So don't use it. You lose on two fronts. You don't get the mark and you don't learn it. It's two things, right? Don't use it. It's not, you can't do it. My TA told me this week when they checked the AI had a correct answer. So I think someone uploaded my answer to it, right? Because AI learned, right? As soon as you upload the answer, they're gonna copy it, right? So someone must have uploaded the answer. And one of the TAs said DeepSeek actually did better than ChatGPT. Anyway, someone said it. But using it, it just it's not very smart. Right? Don't use it. We were sort of lenient on it. We gave some zeros. The TA gave some zeros, some marks, but don't use it. If you use it, you defeat the purpose, right? It's not smart at all. Anyway, if you don't know it, just write stuff from the last lecture notes, you get marks for it, right? Even if it's wrong, you get a good chunk of it, right? You're copying from a machine, you're not going to get anything. See how bad AI was. You know, the supply was like this. That was the supply. And that was the demand. AI, to calculate the surplus, calculated all this area. Even the negative area. That's how bad it was, right? It's like very basic, but it's not smart yet enough to recognize if this hits zero, there's no surplus there. Don't include that one, right? But included it. You went all the way to the end of it, right? And I don't know which one is worse, the AI doing it wrong or you're seeing it and copying it. I think the worst thing is second one wrong. If you use AI to get a sense what you should do, that's fine. That's like using a library, it's fine, right? Use AI, see what you get. Just write it yourself on your own thing based on what you did. That's fine. But if you just copy it, that's not a good idea. Make sense? Anyway, okay. We did 4 of them. One of them is left to next lecture. So let's see if you understand this. They will shock. They will shock. Number 1, you must know the characteristics. Sometimes I ask, show it graphically. Sometimes I ask, explain it. Sometimes I ask, show it mathematically. You basically must know all the components of it. The monopolist will not produce on the elastic part of demand. True or false? Explain. The monopolist will not produce on the elastic part of demand. That's false. Monopolist will not produce on inelastic part of demand. Well, if you want to show it mathematically, show if MR is equal to 0, elastic demand is 1. If demand is inelastic, MR is negative, then how can you produce there? To produce there, marginal value must be negative. Marginal cost must be negative, which is impossible. That's mathematics. Conceptually, if demand is inelastic, you have incentive to keep increasing the price. Because if you increase the price, your revenue goes up. Why do you stop then? You increase the price, you sell less at a higher revenue. You keep doing it. You cannot possibly maximize profit when the demand is inelastic. That's the concept. Make sense? Anyway, that's number 1. Number 2, monopolist supply function is upward sloping. That was on the test, I think, in the summer. Some people wrote, it can't be horizontal. They're trying to hedge. Monopolist does not have a supply function. Does not have it. You must show it graphically. The one I showed is, I shifted the demand, the price only changed. That established the point. You can show it the other way around. Change the demand, just change the quantity. That will be the same thing. Do it this way, that works as well. So I'm going to do the other side of it. I shift the demand. I will only change the quantity, not the price. That will establish no supply because there is no one-to-one relation between quantity and price. Let's see if we can do this one. That is demand, the first one. That's the margin value. That's the marginal cost. That is the quantity. That is the price. So if I want to show you case number 2, I want to show you a case where demand shifts, only price remain, well, only quantity changes. Price remains the same. So I should keep the price the same and shift the demand in a way that Only quantity changes. See if I can do it. That's a no demand. Can I do it this way? Well, that doesn't work. That's a no demand. Yes, that works. That's the no margin value. That is the new quantity, that's the price. I'm fine. I change the demand. I change the demand, shift the demand. Got the new optimization, but at the same price. Make sense? So where is the supply? You don't know at this price what the monopolist will sell, at that quantity what the monopolist will charge. Right? There is no supply. The first one I think is easier. If you shift the demand, only change the price. That looks easier, but you can do it both ways. Right? Again, these are exceptions. Most often, monopolist changes both. The reason you do these cases to show there is not unique relation between price and quantity. Right? That's the idea. So the way I did it, I put the price, I put the demand hitting there, I put the marginal cost ending up there. Right? Make sense? Practice it a couple of times, it will be fine. But saying that monopolist does not have a supply function is not good enough. You have to show it. Either by changing the price or changing quantity only. Right? Normally I don't ask you to do both of them. Or I don't pick. So if you pick one and comfortable with it, that's good enough. Right? Make sense? Okay, anyway, monopolist does not have a supply function. In fact, the only one with a supply function is a perfectly competitive firm. No one else outside perfect competition has supply. This will be true for oligopoly, for monopoly competitive firm. The only one with a supply is perfect competition. That is false. Next one. The monopolist will pay part of the cost of per unit tax imposed by the government. True or false? This will is problematic. It was made, it was right. So we don't claim he never pays it. Sometimes he pays it, sometimes he doesn't. Unlike perfect competition, where it is always paid. Some of it. That is false. If it was made, it would have been correct. Right, and the way you show it is this one. You show a case where you will not pay the cost. That's the case. The price goes up by more than a tax, so no part of the cost is paid by monopolist. All down to the consumer. Alright? Okay. Next one. The monopolist margin revenue can be higher than average revenue. This says MR can be higher than AR. True or false? Is that true or false?
False.
That's false. Average revenue is the price. We know monopolist margin revenue is always less than the price. Why? Because monopolists facing downward sloping demand. The more they sell, the lower the price on all prior units. Make sense? Or mathematically, MR is equal to the price they charge plus the discount they give to move a unit. So since they're facing downward sloping demand, the MR falls below the price. Make sense? Okay, those are four characteristics. This was the only true one. We're done with item number 1. This is done. Number 2. How monopoly works. Let's see. Monopoly is price setter, as we know. Let's check the demand. Let's check the margin value. They put it equal to marginal cost. They find a quantity that maximizes profit, and they set the price. That's the way the monopoly works. In the process, they generate profit that cannot be made anymore. Can you show the profit on the graph? We know the monopolist produces this. that will be the price. Make sense? So technically this is what? This is, what's the name of that area?
Total revenue.
That's it. One more time?
Total revenue.
That's the total revenue. This is how much they get from whatever they sell. That's the total revenue. Can you show the profit? The profit being total revenue minus total cost. We have the total revenue in the graph. Can you somehow get the total cost and find the profit? Yes or no? Okay. What about this area? What if you go and find this area? The blue area. What's the name of the blue area? You can find the blue area if the margin cost straight line, right? If it's not, then that will become complex. But the straight line, you can find the blue area. What's the name of that blue area? You know? The blue area is producer surplus or variable profit. So you can find a variable profit. That's the blue area. Make sense? Can you find the total profit though? You can find a variable profit on the graph. That's the blue area. Can you find the total profit? Well, the total profit is variable profit plus fixed cost. You don't have the fixed cost, you cannot actually find the total profit. You can only find the variable profit, which is that area. Make sense? False. Whether you can find a profit or not, it depends on whether the fixed cost is given or not. On the graph, I don't see fixed cost, so it has to be extra somewhere in the question. Alright? Make sense? Anyway, that will be applied to two questions. See if you can make sense of them. I will be coming to this one soon. That's item number 3, which I haven't covered yet. So leave it aside. This one is item number 2. That is how monopolies works. Let's see how this monopolies works. That's the demand. Flip it to get the inverse demand. That's the inverse demand. Double the slope to get margin value. Since we assume always straight line demand, just double the slope. You don't have to take the derivative or anything like that. So that's the quantity, that's the price. The demand should look like that's the demand. The marginal cost is pretty steep. Well, let me graph margin value a second. I'm going to graph this. That's right in the middle. That's the margin value. And the marginal cost is 10Q, which is pretty steep. The monopolies put MR equal to MC. That marginal value. That is marginal cost. And find profit maximizing quantity. Find this one. How much is it? That looks like 20, right? Is 20? 20. And then goes on the demand and set the price. So this price monopoly set would be what do you get? 225? 225. Right? That's 225. Okay? Okay. Now if you find this area, I'm going to leave that to you, but if you find it, what was the name of it? If you find the blue area, what's the name of it? That blue area is
Variable profit.
variable profit. You can fund it. Margin cost straight line. You can fund it. Make sense? Now if I want to fund it, fund this point, which is 200. You have everything now. The variable profit will be 25 multiplied by 20. This is this area. Plus 200 multiplied by 20 divided by 2, which is this area. I split it into, add them up, right? So that should be how much? 2,000? 3,000? Is it 3,000? Looks like 3,000.
It's 2,500.
Yes. 3,000. Why 3,500?
2,500.
This is 2,000, right? This is 2,500. I only missed it by 500. So we can do that, right? But the profit is unknown because we don't have the fixed cost. So this will be unknown. Right? In this case, no fixed cost is given. You can only calculate variable cost. Right? Make sense? Okay. The next one, give us the whole cost function so we can do more with it. This is power. So let's see. The demand is 64. Is it 800 the other side? 64 divided by 0.08, that looks like 800, right? 800, right? Okay. So the margin when it becomes double the slope, which comes right in the middle, that's your margin rate. And marginal cost is 0.02 cube, pretty flat. Monopolists put these two equal, find the profit maximizing quantity, and then set the price. The quantity should be 64 divided by 0.18. How much is that? This is the quantity he chooses. How much is it? 64 divided by 18. Very good. 300. 55.6. Then you look at the demand and set the price in accordance. That's the price. I guess 35.5, is it? That's the way I remember it. Right? Okay. Now, since we have the total cost, we should be able to calculate the profit directly from the total revenue minus total cost. Which should be 35.5 multiplied by 355.6, that's the total revenue, minus total cost. How much is that? That's the profit. The company made, I calculated that directly from the power function. Did not use variable profit for it. I could have, but I calculated directly from cost function. What would be the profit for this firm? the profit for this film. What's the profit for the firm?
It's 7359.3.
7.3.
59.3.
So let's do an exercise. We're done with this question. Let's do an exercise. Get this point, i.e. put 355.6 in the margin price. What is 0.02 multiplied by 35? 355.6. 7.12? This is 7.12. Right? So let's calculate these two areas. This one and these two. The two areas, this 1 and 2. So help me out with it. This is 35.5 minus 7.12, that's the height, multiplied by 355.6. That is, let's call it 1. Make sense? And let's find 2, which should be 7.12 multiplied by 355.6 divided by 2. Let's call these 2, we calculate 2. Add them up and give me the number. Calculate 1 and 2, add them up. 1 is a box, 2 is diagonal, so I use the formula for it. Calculate. What do you get? Anyone? What's the sum of those two areas? I want to verify something. It's extra to the question, but let's see what we get. Anyone can give me this number. $11,000?
11,357.87.
11,357.
Sorry, 0.86.
0.6. That is our variable profit, right? That's the variable profit, which is the profit plus fixed cost. Make sense? I know it. See this one? You would have added to it 4,000, which was a fixed cost. You would have got variable profit. Make sense? If you take this one, add 4,000 to it, that's the variable profit. The actual profit is variable profit minus fixed cost. Right? So, just a verification. We didn't need to calculate it, but I just wanted to verify it. If you ignore rounding, right, that area is a variable profit, right? Which basically is the total profit minus fixed cost, right? Which you got it there. Anyway, okay. We'll come back to this next week. We need the surplus next week, not really this week. We finished item number 1, we finished item number 2. I'll come back to that next week, so not a big deal now. It's part of next week. Monopoly power. 2 questions about it. How do you measure it? What are the sources of it? So 2 questions about monopoly power. How do you measure monopoly power? What are the sources of monopoly power? Okay. You know, I get flu twice a year. You know where it is? One, early, that people come in and they spread their happiness around the virus, right? So I got that in September. Then I get it now. I think I'm getting it. It's the end of the term. Anyway, I think I'm getting two. Okay, I have a headache. Hopefully not very difficult, right? I hate the vaccines. I never do the vaccines. They tell me do it. Never do it, right? If you get it, you get it. But they always get it anyway. Hopefully it's not terrible, right? Okay, anyway, let's see. Monopoly power. We know if you maximize profit, that's what you end up with. Right? We know the MR is the price you charge plus the discount you give for whatever you sell when you reduce the price or when you increase the price. We know that one. I replaced MR with the formulas way. Okay? I'm going to rearrange it now. So we aren't doing anything. We're writing profit maximization formula, replacing for MR, rearranging. Right? Divide both sides by the price. You're going to get this one. What's the other side? What does this look like? Does that look familiar? What is it? That's the inverse of it. It's PQ. The elastic is QP, not PQ. The elastic is this one. That's the other way around. Alright, so that's the inverse of elastic demand. That's the inverse of elastic demand. This is called markup or learner index from monopoly power. That's the markup. That's the measure of monopoly power used initially by Mr. Learner. So we call it learner index for monopoly power. And that's the way monopoly power is measured with. It's a nice index because it's range bound from below to 0. That's no power. From above to 1, that's extreme power. Alright, it's a nice index. 0, you have no power. You cannot mark up at all. The price is marginal cost. That's the competition. And the highest end of it is 1, that extreme power. Alright? Make sense? Now, if you look at the formula, you know why some firms have monopoly power, some don't. It's all a function of elasticity of demand. If this is infinite, no power. That's a perfect competition. A perfect competition facing horizontal demand, the demand that says infinite. You have no pricing power, there is no monopoly power. Right? Anyone outside that will have monopoly power. So when you say monopoly power, you don't have to be monopolist to have it. If you set the price higher than the marginal cost, you have monopoly power. So anyone outside that competition has monopoly power. Makes sense? Obviously, monopolist has the highest. But anyone outside that competition has monopoly power. Make sense? The lower the elastic demand, the more power you have. Say, if you're facing demand which is this elastic, what the index of monopoly power for you? It will be 1 over 2. If your demand elasticity becomes minus 1.1, what's the index for you? Much higher. You have a lot more pricing power. You can set the price much higher than the marginal cost. That's your learner index. How much is it? What is 1 divided by 1.1? 0.9? That's a lot of power. In the real world, typically the learner index, if it's more than 0.4, that's considered a high power. Unless you are pharmaceutical companies, you're not going to have anything exceeding 0.4, 0.5. Yeah.
Shouldn't it be like 0.91 or something?
0.91. 0.91. Anytime the index goes above 0.4, you're considered to have a lot of monopoly power. So don't expect it to go to 0.91. These numbers, crazy numbers like this, are for pharmaceutical companies, where demand for them is so less elastic. People are willing to pay anything for it. Last I read, Apple monopoly power is 0.4. That's considered high. See, Johnson & Johnson index was around 0.2. And Johnson & Johnson sells stuff you really need. But they don't have a lot of price power. It's 0.2. They can mark up a lot, right? There's a lot of competition there. Coke was like 0.14. Make sense? So don't expect the number to be like 0.9. It's not that. Unless you are a pharmaceutical company, anything higher than 0.4 is considered very high enough. But pharmaceuticals are quite different. They're basically some stuff that people cannot live without. They have extreme power there. As though they're mostly regulated for that. The government comes in, so the price works. Anyway. Okay, note number one. Monopoly power is measured by the Lena index. The higher, the more power, the lower, the less power. Zero means you're out of competition, you have no power. Anything more than zero basically means you're not effective competitive. Okay, question for you. Can this be exactly 1? I didn't put equal to 1, I put less than 1. Why didn't I put 1 there? Can the elastic demand be minus 1? If it's minus 1, then the Lena index becomes 1. Is it possible? Is it possible for Lena index to be 1? The way I wrote it, I excluded 1. Why did I exclude 1? Because monopolist only produces on the elastic part of demand. You're not going to produce on the inelastic. If demand elasticity is 1, what does it mean? Raise the price by 10%, quantity will drop by 10%. Your revenue is always the same. You have incentive to raise the price infinitely. Make sense? So, elasticity should be, in absolute term, more than 1. It cannot be 1. If it's 1, you have incentive to raise the price to infinite. As a result, the upper end is not 1. It may close to 1, but will never become 1. Right? Make sense? Okay. Okay, monopoly power is measured by Lena index. Question for you. What is the Pendite book? I know you don't buy it. How much it cost? $200? Pendite's 200, right? Pendite's 200. That's the book. Right? What's the marginal cost of it? It's probably $30. No more than that. The cost of production is like probably $10, $12. You pay the offer some, 10, 15, and there's some administrative stuff. How 30 becomes 200 then? Why the markup is so high? The markup is how much? The markup is very high. The Lena index looks very high. What's the Lena index for Pendite? Calculate it, how much do you get? How 30 becomes 200? Why the Lena index is so high? The Lena index is how much? 170 divided by 200. How much is that? 0.85? 0.85. That's very high. You can calculate the elastic demand through it. What's the elastic demand? What do you got? You may say demand elastic is not. Demand is pretty inelastic, not very elastic. That's the reason you get such markup. Is that true? Is demand for books so less elastic to get such a high markup? Yes or no? Why the books are so expensive? Well, the answer is in the real world, unfortunately, often there are more than one markup, but there are multiple monopolies down the road. The publisher is one monopoly. The distributor is another one. The bookstore is another one. You have 3 monopolies down the chain. Everyone marks up. You get 30 becoming 60 because the publisher marks up. 60 become 120 because the distributor marks up. And 120 becomes 200 because the Both marks on. So in the real world, when you get the price so high, because down the chain of production, there are many, many agents. They all act as monopolies. Yeah.
Do companies usually get the learner index first, or do they get the EV first and then calculate?
Oh, they look at their demand.
At what?
They look at their demand. On the demand, elasticity is set. When you say the demand, you need the elasticity of the demand. So I'm solving it backward.
But for the whole company?
The company has this one. Then they set the price. So I'm doing it backward.
Okay.
I'm looking what they did, trying to calculate elasticity through it. But in the real, it's the other way around. It's like lecture number 1. You get the demand through elasticity. That's the way you get it, right? Then the whole thing falls. Anyway, but the story here is, if you have several marks up down the chain, you'll get double, triple markup. And you see the price is so high as a result. So often when the government wants to allow merger, they look at that one. They easily allow vertical integration, because you remove some of the marks. They rarely allow, or almost never allow, horizontal merger. They don't allow, say, Apple to merge with Microsoft. That creates lots of markup. Make sense? Lots of concentration. But they easily allow Microsoft to buy this pen maker. Because the pen maker is vertical integration. You remove one Microsoft there. Right? Anyway. Okay, having said that, the whole thing is about the elasticity. That decides the whole thing. So monopoly power is foremost decided by elasticity of demand. The lower elasticity of demand, more Lerner index of monopoly power. That's sort of obvious. If you look at the index, it's inversely related to elastic demand. The less elastic, more power. Right? The demand might be less elastic, but there might be a lot of sellers out there. They compete with each other. They dilute the market. Say, red, demand is very elastic. That's the market demand. But there's hundreds of producers selling. They compete, they dilute each other power. So the next part is, the more firms in the market, the less power they will have. So we end up with red, that demand is very elastic for it, yet no market power there because producers compete with each other. There's a whole bunch of them. Right? Then the question becomes, can they cooperate? If they cooperate, then the Lerner index will increase. So now the question becomes, will these players in the market cooperate with each other or not? If they do cooperate, they increase their pricing power. They increase their Lerner index. But cooperation is illegal. That is subject to antitrust laws. You know the case of bread in Canada, right? The big retailers, grocers, Loblaws is the worst of them. Sobeys, second worst. Metro, third worst. These three got together, fixed the price of bread. They tried to cooperate. They picked up the phone, actually talked to each other and fixed the bread. They got charged. They got fined $500 million. If you want to make money, that's the way to make it. They fined $500 million. The lawyers who put the thing through and got the signatures got $100 million of it. So $100 million is gone to the lawyers. $400 million is being distributed between Canadians. It's still out there. You have until December 12 to file up. If you file up, you will get up to $50. It all depends on how many people file up. 400 million divided by the number of people who file up, they give the money. If you file up, you may end up with up to $50 in compensation. So file up. You may get $50, it costs nothing, right? Anyway, but that's illegal. You shouldn't pick up phone and talk to your friends, fixing the price. That's against antitrust laws. But companies actually backdoor that cooperation. What they do is they cooperate implicitly. Say, year, January 1st, the bank fee will change. Just check it out. They all change at the same time. More or less the same rate. If you want to withdraw money, say last year was $1, now it's $1.50. How come that's coordinated? Are they cooperating? Yes or no? Are they picking phone and saying to each other, well, let's charge 1.5, that's illegal. What do they do then? They don't cooperate explicitly, but in some market we have price leader. They set the price, everyone follows. That is what we call implicit cooperation, which is not illegal. Right? It's technically you're cooperating, but not illegally. That happens, I think, in the gas market. If you check the gas market, it will look like every morning they are the same. Why are they the same? Because one of the big ones, I think is ESO, signals the price for tomorrow a day before, and everyone follows. If they don't, they will be a price war. And they have fought it so many times, it's not worth fighting. They'll all lose. That's sort of what we call implicit cooperation. That's price leadership. That's not illegal. You know, the gas stations, there have been many, many government research done. They try to pin them down, find them. They couldn't because they're not Loveless. Loveless is the dumbest one. You don't pick a phone and go there and fix the price, right? They figure it out at some point. Anyway, these things though are studied in CO2, but not this course. For this course, you just have to know the basics. So let me go there, do more, then we take it. What's the Lena index for this firm? What's the Lena index for monopoly power for this firm? Is the price minus marginal cost divided by price. How much is it? Not a lot. The first firm did not mark up by much, did not have much monopoly power there. How much is that one? Pound? 1.1. That should be equal to the inverse of elastic of demand. So the demand is pretty elastic there. That sounds like 99. 99. The demand is pretty elastic. That's the reason there was not much market power there. Right? There's a bit of markup, not much. Was it 99? 1 divided by 0.11. That looks like 99, right?
I think it's 9.09.
9.09. Okay, that is this one. What about the second one? The second one looks like they marked up by a lot. So the power must be much higher. So that index is 35.5 minus 7.12. 35.5. What is the market? What is the Lena index for that firm? That looks like very high. That looks like very high. What do you get there? Font? Con 8? Con 8. That should be equal to the inverse of elastic of demand. So demand is not very elastic. That's the reason you have so much power there. Right? Demand is not very elastic. That's the reason the markup was so high. Right? Make sense? Okay. Okay, that is this. We left out, which one? We left out this one. You should be able to answer this one now. The monopoly power can only be exerted by the sole producer. True or false? Should you be a monopoly to have monopoly power? That is false. Anyone that is not in a perfect competition will have monopoly power. Unless demand is infinitely elastic, you have power. The monopoly power is for everyone who set the price higher than the market price. The ability to set the price, that's called monopoly power. You don't have to monopoly to have it. Okay. What about the next one? Is that the Lena index? Yes or no? Is that the Lena index? We wrote it this way. Can you write it that way? Yes, because the price is the average revenue. So there are two ways to write it. Although we typically use this one to write it, but that is another way of writing it because the price is the average revenue. Right? Okay. That is that one. We're gonna do this one, then we stop. Moderna is first to discover COVID-19 vaccine. You know, I got all 3 vaccines. The first one was AstraZeneca. Then I got Pfizer, then I got Moderna. I got 3 of them. I never got COVID. I think I got it. I didn't test positive though. Which one was the worst? Which one do you think was the worst? The worst was Moderna. All terrible. Like someone hitting you in the head many, many times. That's the way you feel. Moderna was terrible. And AstraZeneca was second worst. Pfizer was nothing. It's like drinking water. Like nothing. I think it was basically water, right? Anyway, these are actual numbers. I basically calculated this one because I knew the price, but I used the actual numbers. The marginal cost of producing a vaccine is just $2. Very low. If you are biotech company, when you put the research, when you invent the drug, the rest is very, very cheap to produce. It's just a formula, right? You apply it. It's not very expensive to produce at all. That was $2 then. So the question says they're maximizing profit. If they're maximizing profit, they must put MR equal to MC, which means the markup formula holds for them. These two are the same. You got the markup formula from MR equal to MC. So by saying you maximize profit, that basically means let the index hold. Right? And we have the marginal cost. I gave you the elastic demand. You should be able to calculate the price. What's the price? What's the price? So I basically had the price. I had the marginal cost. I got this one, then I reversed the question. I reverse it to make it as a question. But in the real world, the price is seen. The marginal cost is seen. You can figure out what the firm think about the demand elasticity. What do you get there though? What's demand elasticity? What is the price though? 22? 22. You get 22. They marked up by a lot because demand is not very elastic. Right? Make sense? Demand is not very elastic. Just another example. You know the Ozempic, you know that drug? What's the price of it now? It costs $350 after all this price reduction. It costs $350 currently. One dose $350, right? It used to be $10,000, so $350. The marginal cost is probably $3. It's just a drug. You invented the drug. The cost of producing is nothing. It's just a formula, right? Say $3. What is the Len index of multiplier for those guys? Know about something. What's the name of the company? What's the Len index for that company?
0.99.
Very high, extreme power. What's the demand elasticity? You can calculate it. Very low, close to 1. What do you get there? You'll get demand elasticity. Very close to 1. How much?
1.01.
The lower demand elasticity, the more the markup. The drug companies mark up by a mile because demand is so less elastic for it. There's no alternative. That was only because no alternative, right? I remember a couple of years ago, one of these biotech companies priced a dose of drug for cancer, 70,000, and you need 3 doses a year. 70,000, because demand is elastic so low, it's a cancer drug, right? So the only one with extreme marketing power, pricing power, are actually biotechs. There's no alternative for them, right? The government often comes in and regulates them, forces them to charge specific price, all the while they bring the price to infinity. Make sense? Selling one at $1 billion is better than selling 1,000 at 100,000. That's the whole thing. Make sense? So then so inelastic, keep raising the price. Anyway, we're done with this. We'll take a break. Then we do the nice numerical one, which is number 4. That number 4 has always been on the final. So you will see it when I post sample final soon. We'll do it after the break.